What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this, we have Parenting is Different, Britain versus America. Excited to see all these differences. I know there's going to be a good amount of them. Before we do, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and let's dive straight in.
Yeah, we mentioned wanting to give our kids more freedom and stuff, but not when they're able to drive somewhere. Freedom
I
in
feel
a
that.
field or a beach or something like that. But yeah,
Not on the road.
15-year-old out in the wild, geez, yikes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Annie, and this is Zach. And today's topic is about the differences between parenting in the UK versus the US.
Yes, we took a break last week because we had family visiting during our 2+ week Easter holiday, which is fantastic. And now we are back ready to talk about those wretched little children.
And the reason that we are experts in this area is because we recently, within the past year, moved our family from California over to Scotland. And this is where we are for the
Man,
long haul now.
Which includes 3 children under the age of 10.
Yes.
So
So
we're in the thick of it.
yes, we have a
oh,
toddler and then two school age.
310. I got one at 6 months. And he wears me out. So for all you parents that got multiple kids, bro, how how do you
Boys,
do it?
but we have lots of friends and
How?
families in both countries and know the ins and outs of the different stages. So we're going to go through those in a systematic fashion and give you our honest thoughts and
Let's see what we got.
perspectives, I guess.
So obviously raising children in the UK and the US, there are a lot of similarities. After all, the countries, in the grand scheme of things, are not that different culture-wise. It's not like growing up in Asia or in a third world country in Africa, for example. So we have found a lot of similarities, but we've found some funny and very interesting differences as well.
Yes. And of course, we need to preface this before you come at us in the comments.
They'll still come. They'll still come.
They'll still be coming. Parenting in both countries, there is a spectrum. You have your crunchy granola moms who are all about the natural holistic,
I feel
breastfeeding your
that.
child till they're 12. Just
Hmm.
and then you have
That's 144 months.
the parents on the other end of the spectrum who've read every single baby book and are doing things to the T by what are doctor's recommendations and what you
Yeah,
hear from the pediatrician and
guys.
everything in between and even outside of those spectrums.
I was about to say,
The non-parents.
I think across 3 children, we've probably tried a little bit of everything and
Mhm.
just end up finding that whatever works for you is the right thing to do.
And whatever works for one child definitely doesn't work for the
True.
other child. So,
I
keeping
feel
all
that.
that in mind, we're going to sort of touch on the basics that we have noticed as, I guess, general, what would you call it?
General upbringing.
Takeaways, whatever.
Okay, so let's start at the start with some major differences and parenting decisions during prenatal and the infancy stage.
Yes. So, a big difference and something that you have to plan as a family in the US is how you're going to use your maternity leave. When do you stop breastfeeding? If you're going back to work, are you going to be
Oh,
still choosing to breastfeed your child? And if you are, do you want your child to get breast milk when you're at work? Are you going to give them formula?
dang, these are
Since
good
in the
questions.
US, your job is not secure in a lot of places more than 12 weeks with getting paid. Some people even go back to work as early as 6 weeks after
Yeah.
delivering their child.
Hmm.
The
Some
option to
earlier.
breastfeed exclusively for an entire year is really tricky in many instances. And this is why UK or US insurances actually cover the cost of a breast pump for every woman with every single new pregnancy she has. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very much dependent on the
Wow.
employer.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, for my job, I was able to take quite a bit of time off for each of our children, which was fantastic. And certainly that's not something that's definitely afforded to all
Nah.
fathers out
No.
there, let alone mothers who might be going to work after 6 weeks, like Anna
Yeah.
said. So,
So if you go back to work and you do choose that you want your child to have breast milk, you have to express milk while at work, bring it
Yeah.
home, store it, freeze it, and go from there. Whereas in the UK, a lot more women are able to breastfeed in the home setting for a whole year, and it makes that
See.
decision much easier, I think.
Yeah.
and recently, I don't know if it's recently, but now you can also split that year with your other half.
Mm-hmm.
So if the woman
Dang.
is the main breadwinner, then that gives her the option to go back earlier and still have a caretaker at home.
Yep.
So
And those are just decisions you don't even have access to in the US necessarily.
Mm.
So that's a huge thing. And then moving on from that,
Dang, to
for
get a full year, a full year. See, that's how things are supposed to go. But here in the old land of US of A, where the dollar is the bottom line and is the almighty, it won't ever be like that. But they want us to put more kids out, yet they don't want to give you the time off necessary to raise your kids, and they don't want to give you daycare prices that are affordable for a lot of families, and so it's not making any sense. But yeah, shout out to the UK. Giving a full year is absolutely incredible, and to all the employers who do give their employees maternity, paternity leave for great periods of time. You guys are absolutely awesome. For you big corporations, you guys stink, right? These people have no option but to go back to work. There's no way at 6 weeks. My wife would have left my child, and I wouldn't want her to. She does such a great job taking care of my son, Knight, so that I can come in here and work and do these videos. We're honestly just a great team. And with the way he be acting, this job might be a little bit easier than what she got to do.
of the thoughts and feelings about breastfeeding in general.
I'm going to leave this up to the expert here. So
As you know, in Europe and throughout the UK, just seeing someone breastfeeding without a cover is completely acceptable. No one bats an eye. It's everywhere. You just see people out in public all the time, tops off, breastfeeding their child, completely normal. That is not always the case across the US, depending on where you are. In California, where we moved from, yeah, I would say it
I
wasn't
think definitely a lot
strange,
more common.
a
Yeah.
lot more common, but you still did see quite a few women covering themselves, having a blanket
Yeah,
over the baby's face and their shoulder, which just, it's interesting the difference there and the preconceived notions people have. But then in Georgia, where I was raised, I would say most women are covered up when breastfeeding their child in public. And some women choose not even to breastfeed in public because it's
yeah.
uncomfortable and you get a lot of stares, depending on where you are, of course. But that goes to show there are differences between countries and those decisions you have to make.
Another thing in the
Yeah, I
UK,
just feel like in Europe in general, they're more comfortable with their bodies in terms of they don't sexualize everything, and that's the thing over here in the United States. It feels like everything is definitely sexualized, and so an act like that, which is a mother trying to give milk to her child, trying to feed her child, somehow over here being sexualized in Europe, it's like, no, this is like natural. Why are they getting any stares or why are we acting in any kind of weird way? This is a natural thing to happen. Like, we're weirdos. You wanted it, we're weirdos.
which we became aware of, which might make a parenting decision a whole lot easier for you and your partner, is the ability to job share. Not just in the school setting. I mean, one of
Mm.
our sons has a teacher who
Mm-hmm.
job shares, and that allows someone to be at home obviously half the time. But any job, office-based job, any sort of sector will often advertise that as well as maybe flexi time, you can also have a job share
Yep.
with that position.
Especially in the
A
NHS and
job
healthcare,
share?
you get that the job that I would have through the NHS, they're not always posted as having a job share, but if you reach out to them directly and ask, it's typically an option, which is incredible. And it makes
Huh.
being able to do part time that much more
Mm.
accessible.
Yeah, like Annie mentioned before, I think California's maybe towards the front end of that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But in the UK, I found in general, it definitely seems to be the employers are more like family focused and
Yes.
trying to accommodate whatever accommodations you need or they can help you with in order to have a good work life balance.
That's so awesome,
All right,
bro.
let's get into some of the later
That is
years.
so
After you
awesome.
get out of this baby season, you
Okay.
move into those decisions or parenting differences from school age and onward. So let's
Mm.
get into those. So I would say a general statement is that in the UK, parents give their kids much more freedom. And this
Mm.
means not only freedom as space away from you. In California, I think I would give my kids like 10 feet away from me is what I would feel comfortable with in some
Definitely
areas.
within eyesight.
Yeah, for
Whereas
Eyesight.
sure.
whereas here, if they disappear out of eyesight, personally, I'm not as concerned as maybe I was
hmm
in the States.
I'd feel
I
way
feel
more comfortable with them going on their bikes and riding up ahead to a playground and playing for a bit without me right there than I would have in California, really anywhere.
yeah.
Um, the other thing with that is parents give their kids more freedom as it relates to public transport.
Mm. And he was shocked to
For
see
sure.
So
young
shocked.
school-age children riding public transport by themselves. And
hmm
I remember doing that when I was younger as well. And the whole public transport system over here is safer and more a part of everyday life.
And reliable.
Yes.
And
I feel
it's
that.
interesting. I do feel because the towns and villages are smaller, there is more of a sense of community and
Mm.
people know people and can spot people who might not have good
Belong.
intentions or
Yeah.
belong.
Us when we
So,
first moved there.
yeah. So that helps in one sense. But another thing is that I don't know, it's just part of the culture.
I had a strange theory about this as well, that the US is so based around major highways, it's like easier to sort of nip in and out of suburban towns if you do have bad intentions. Whereas here, you're gonna get
That's a good
stuck behind
point.
roadworks or some little narrow
Yeah.
road, and
You're not fleeing for 100
yeah,
miles on some
Mm-mm.
vast interstate
that
and
might
getting
just
off.
be the former CHP officer in me, but anyway.
It does. It generally feels safer. And even your brother, he was talking about living in one area and maybe sending his kids to school in a different area. And
Mm.
he's like, "How's that going to
Yeah.
work? You work." It's like they get on the bus. I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay."
Buses, trains, it's how a lot of kids do get to school, and
hmm
yeah.
And it's definitely not out of the norm to see children riding on public transport by themselves.
On this topic, and one of
That's
the
like, yeah, it's such a difference. I feel like growing up, I definitely did have that freedom to go down the street to the park and play all day and come back before the street lights came on. Or to go like 10, 15 minutes on my bike across town, play with my friends, go to their house. Like, there was definitely a lot more freedom when I was a kid. Now, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, yeah, when my son, as my sons are growing up, out in public, you stay in eyesight. You going for out in the yard, you staying outside. You do not leave because here is just. I mean, you see so much on the news when it comes to kidnappings, and you get these Amber alerts, and you just think the worst, and eh, the world that we live in today is not the greatest, and so yeah, over here in the U.S., we definitely give our kids a lot less freedom, which sucks because kids should have the freedom to go out, explore, adventure, have a good time, right? But I don't know. It's just different culture over here. It's more fear based. And yeah, public transport by themselves, forget about it. Forget about it. Uh, Such differences.
factors that was part of our decision to move was that we want to give our kids the childhood that we both had growing up in the 90s, when you're out and about roaming free and came home when you got hungry or when the street lights came
Yeah.
on.
hmm
And
Yeah.
something that we found recently over here is that there's a lot less parent interaction when it comes to like birthday parties.
Or even play
Mm,
dates.
Yeah.
So kids will arrange these on their own. And I
really?
almost, it feels a little bit awkward when I try to talk with the parents about specifics and different things, um, which I find so interesting just how much leeway parents allow over
I feel
here
like
and
in the US,
trust.
there's almost like a vetting process. It's like, okay, well, I'll
Mm-hmm.
see if I like the parents, and if we get to know
Mm-hmm.
hmm
them, then you guys can like play together.
Yep.
Whereas
Yep.
here, yeah, or someone comes and is like, oh, this wants me to go around to his house to play. It's like, oh, is other parents gonna call me
I
or
need
something?
more
It's like,
information.
no, they're just around the corner. It's like, does
I
not
still don't,
compute.
I do not feel comfortable. No.
And then
So
even
just,
like birthday parties as well. It's just,
mhm.
okay, do we stay, or it's like, oh no, it's
Yes.
just have a party at our house. There's a bunch of kids here. Like you're free to drop them off and pick them up in a couple hours.
Yeah, over
Just
here it's way more common from very early ages to
mm,
just drop your child off for a birthday party at someone's house and that's it.
Really?
we just did it.
I know,
Say
but
it
for me, my comfort level would be about 10 years old is when I might
Hmm.
start doing that.
again.
Whereas over here, when I was talking with some of the other parents, it's 4 or
I
5.
was about to say we had not got to that age yet,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, like I said, some of the other parents like, oh no, we've been doing that for a couple of years now, and this that, and the other.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are not just random street children; they are
Yeah.
kids from
They all go to
school,
the same school.
but
You're part of the same
we've
community.
not
Mhm.
met their parents significantly
Mm-hmm.
or anything other than saying hi at pick up and drop off. So
Yep.
very interesting. And something that we've noticed is very different
Just a
between the
big
two
difference.
countries. Yeah.
So another difference between the UK and US parenting styles is people's comfort levels around loudness.
Mhm.
And in the US, there's just so much more space. Houses
Excuses,
typically
excuses, excuses.
houses typically don't share walls. There are many more houses that are freestanding.
Yeah,
Whereas over here, because there's a lot less space, there's a lot more semi-detached and row homes.
I see that.
It's
Yeah,
Terrace
yes,
houses
terrace
and
housing.
flats and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's a lot more sharings of wall ceilings and all that, and
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a factor to consider, and it's a good point that Annie raised. Actually, I didn't think about it, and since we moved from our giant house in California where nobody was near us,
Yeah.
our kids were loud and free around the place.
Uh-huh.
I feel
But just
that.
having to reel that in a little bit because obviously you don't want to disrupt neighbors or make people
Mm-mm.
feel uncomfortable in their own homes. So just being aware that in the UK, voices are typically
Mm.
softer and in all public spaces. And it's funny because I don't consider myself a loud person unless I'm around family and really close friends. Then I am. But over here, I, without a doubt, feel I'm one of the loudest when at like a kid's sports game or something.
Yeah, I've had to reel Annie in. She's on the side of the rugby line. She's the loudest voice by far. No, she was for a couple
There,
of practices and
that's a
games.
parenting thing that's
Yes.
different. So in the US,
That's
parents on the side.
that's funny. Yeah, I feel like over here, yeah, like in houses, you grow up and you can be as loud as you want. But like when we move into apartments and you got somebody on top of you, somebody below you, somebody to the side, you're a little more quiet. And kids are still loud. And it's like, hey, the neighbors, you got to get them to be quiet because they don't understand. But yeah, so in the UK, just more quiet because that's kind of the environment that y'all grow up in where you're sharing walls and stuff. So you're respectful of other people's, I guess, you're respectful of their quiet time, their peace. That's the word. You're respectful of other people's peace and you don't want to be a nuisance. Um, And so, yeah, you guys are just quieter. Like, I'm in the house now and I feel like I'm loud. But when I used to record in an apartment, try to be a little bit quieter.
Sidelines are cheering, like roaring on their kids, and like, come over here, let me give you a little tidbit, and
Mm-hmm.
interactive throughout the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the UK, no, it is silence on the
I
sideline.
had
Really?
to reel Annie in a practice session. She was trying to get her kids like, do this. Just easy there.
It's just different. I
Yeah.
had no idea. Felt so out of place once I realized.
Annie also was a very competitive
Mm-hmm.
football or soccer player.
Hmm.
So she's used to the high stakes and getting all the tactics and this that, and the
I
other.
have
And
3 brothers too. I'm very
yeah,
competitive. So, yeah, it's just a huge difference
yeah.
with
It might even
parenting
be
over here.
their rugby football culture difference. I don't know,
Could
but
be.
Mm-hmm.
yes. And I, because I grew up playing rugby as well. I was by myself, like rising to Annie's level at some point. I was like, we're just those two people that American sounding people that won't shut up now. So, no, I don't think anyone made a point of it, but it is something to consider. You're not going to be as loud on the side of
Hey,
Hmm.
the rugby or football pitch as you are in America, I think.
I feel
Another
like that is good though, in the sense of the coach, like actually gets to coach without you like always trying to tell your child to do this or that, and they might have told your child to do something else, and now your child get confused. Who do I listen to? Coach is the coach. Parents on the sideline, you can cheer you on. Hey, good job, right? But don't be trying to give instruction during the game. In the car, you need some instruction. But I will say my son's probably going to play sports. I hope he does. If not, that's fine. But I'm gonna definitely be cheering on the sideline. Definitely be a little loud on that sideline. I'll tell you that. But let's continue. It's crazy to see these differences.
Difference that I've seen is that American parents typically show more outward displays of affection. So,
Mm.
dropping off their kids at school, everyone was giving their kids hugs and kisses. I love you. Have a great day. It's going to be so nice to see
Go
you when
get
you
him,
get home.
champ.
Yeah.
It really was like that. And over here, there is the hug and goodbye, but that's it. There, it doesn't go beyond that. Whereas our cuddles will be like a minute long, and
Yeah, I don't. It's not like a. I don't know if it's like a tough love or it's just not expressed as much. Like these families are deeply love their children, but they just don't show it like they do in America.
hmm
It's more
yeah,
like a pat on the head, like don't get into trouble. But that is their way of showing affection.
yeah. It's
It's
just
very different.
slightly
Mm.
different.
But you do you. You do you.
I will continue to do me. One last thing before we get into schooling related ones is that in the US, do you hear Finnegan?
Our guard dog has alerted us
Yeah.
to danger.
We might need to bring him inside. He's getting.
Probably just a pigeon or something.
So, because of healthcare costs in the US, you do think twice before taking your kid to the doctor's office for just little ailments, I would say.
Yeah, even if you have good insurance, which we thankfully did have, there's always something to pay.
Yep.
A copay.
Whether
Yep.
it's just, I mean, it could just be $20, $30, but there's always something to pay. And
Always.
then not going too deeply into it, for your whole family over the course of the year, you often have to spend thousands of dollars before everything is completely free.
Yes.
Crazy.
That includes
That's
your visits, your
crazy.
medication, follow ups, all that sort of stuff.
hmm
Whereas in the UK and especially in Scotland, your appointments and your medication are free in terms of there's no money exchange at the point of service. So you,
And
yeah, it's just not something you have to think about. And
you're right. And
sorry,
because, oh no, I'm sorry. And because our family has been sick since the moment we stepped foot in Scotland, because honestly, new country, new germs, you start over, you're all toddlers in this
Yeah,
together, getting
I
sick
get what you
daily.
we are
mean.
both currently sick.
Yes. But because of that,
Shout out to y'all for pushing through and getting this video made through the sickness. That's dedication right there.
I feel no shame taking our kids to the
Mm.
doctor whenever we need to here. And yeah, if there's something going on, we go get them seen. And where we are, luckily, we can get an appointment pretty easily.
I was about to say to begin with, we were almost hesitant about it because we'd heard horror stories like, oh, you can't get an appointment for weeks, this, that, and the other. And that is more true if you're an adult with not something that's not like life threatening.
hmm
Like, okay, yeah, your appointment's like next week or whatever. But for kids, they will try and squeeze them in.
Yeah.
Like our son had an ear infection recently, and he was seen the same day
Oh,
by a nurse at
hmm
the doctor's office, and we got the medicine the same day, this and the other, and
dang.
it was just seamless. As the kids get older,
That is
school is a huge
nice.
consideration, and this is something.
That is very, very nice. But it's cool to kind of see the differences in how the parents show their love, right? Where you got Americans that I guess are more expressive outwardly, whereas in the UK, it's like you love your child, but you're not always, hey, go get them, champ. Have a great day. Love you. Hugs. It's not always that. It's but that love is known. I feel like that's kind of how I grew up, to be honest. My dad, like I don't, when I was young, I don't think we hugged a ton. I feel like my dad has definitely gotten softer over the years, and we'll hug, and he'll tell me he loves me all the time. He was an incredible dad growing up, but I guess emotionally we just weren't like very expressive. And now I'm not too expressive of a person with my love, but yeah, for my kid, like I'll hug him, I'll kiss him on the cheek. I freaking love him to death. I will give him that kind of love, but like I feel like my wife has definitely softened me up a bit. Whereas maybe I didn't always say I love you. Now every time I walk out the door, I love you, see you in a little bit. Um, and I'm becoming more different. Uh, I still feel with my emotions inside of myself. I still don't express them all the time, but to my loved ones, I'll express my love and gratitude and respect for them.
We get a lot of messages and emails about trying to make the decision about where to live based on the schools, and all that
hmm
is what was actually one of the biggest stressors that we found
It
in the move
definitely
over.
was. And it depends on where you are in the UK. Some places you can live out of your catchment area for the school you want to go to, and they'll easily let you attend if there's space. But in other areas, either more populated, highly desirable areas, your catchment is there's no wiggle room with that. Your catchment is where you're going to go if you choose to do public schooling or state schooling. Is that what you call it over here?
Locals, yeah.
Local free schooling.
Where it's confusing over here because when you're talking between public and private, depending where you are, public can mean private and private vice. Anyway,
Got you.
this is the free local authority schools that we're talking about at the moment.
So a parenting thing that you need to know is to find out where you want your kid to go to school, and you can do that by looking at the Ofsted reports and find out if it has a outstanding rating versus a good rating versus whatever, and you can make an informed decision that way. Another thing, in the US, it's quite rare, I would say, for people to go to private paid for schools. Unless you're an extremely affluent family or religious family and want them to go to a religious institution, it's not by any ways normal.
And while private schools in the UK can still be expensive, it's not on the level in the US, I don't think. I mean, you can make a decent income here and still choose to send your kids to private school. There's a much bigger range of pricing options, basically.
That's
Whereas
nice.
in the States, I think it's much more exclusive.
It is.
Yeah.
And so
For sure.
sending your child to a private school over here is a decision that many families consider, and it's actually an option, whereas in the US, that's not typically an option for most families.
The next parenting topic we're going to talk about is sex education.
If your child go to private school, you got money over here. You got some bread in your pockets. And the fact that in the UK, like it seems like even with the schools that aren't private, you can still get to kind of choose your school. Like over here, that's not the case. Unless you're sending your kid to a private school or something, wherever you're located at is whatever school district is in that area, that's the school that you're mandated to go to. You don't get to choose, and there may be three different high schools in 30-minute range of you, and you get to pick the best one. No, they got it all carved out. If you live in a certain place, this is the school you're going to.
Education, because our 9-year-old, primary 4, has just started learning about sex education in school, which was mind-blowing to Annie.
It was.
9 years?
In the
That
US,
is.
if
Really?
sex education is even taught, it is, but in some degree in every state, but lesser in some of those southern states. It's not taught until middle school, I believe, or 5th grade at the very earliest.
Annie was shocked when I told her when we started learning about sex education or had sex education classes. I remember it was around primary 4, primary 5, and it just is a sort of early biology lesson. Basically, there's no hidden agenda or anything. It just explains what's what and how things work, and just makes an easier topic to talk about with your young children when they have questions or whatever it may be. And it just, as a parent, it helps because now you can just refer back to what they're learning in school versus this weird, strange topic that only parents know about or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good because in the UK, I think like our family has talked about things from a very early age. But being able to, especially for families who maybe haven't had those conversations, it all starts a bit earlier over here. So you're able to address things before they're learning about it when they're actually going through certain things.
Yeah.
So it's nice to sort of pre-learn before you experience certain
Which was more your learning environment. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pre-learn.
So, we did get a message beforehand from the teacher saying this is what we're going to be starting next week. Fast forward to that next week. We asked our son how it went. He's like, well, they started the first video or lesson or whatever it was, and everyone started laughing so much they had to stop. So, baby steps. But it just bringing it in at this early age just helps kids understand a lot more and helps parents, as we discussed. So, yeah, huge difference between the two countries right there.
Yeah.
Another cultural
I feel like
difference.
honestly in the UK it sounds like kids just have like more freedom, freedom in general. They have more space to be kids, like, but they can still learn about these certain things at a younger age. Which, yeah, you're not teaching sex ed until maybe seventh, eighth grade, maybe, but high school mostly. And so, yeah, you're waiting all the way to the end to teach them, but they're learning at 9 years old in the UK. Like, I don't think our kids are mature. This fly keeps flying in my face. I don't think our kids are mature enough. Like, but maybe that's because we don't give them the trust and freedom that kids in the UK did. I mean, at 9 years old, they're probably getting exposed to it in one way or another. So it would be better if they were exposed to it by adults who can talk to them and answer any questions.
The driving ages, and with that, decisions with parenting around driving. So in the US, I could get my permit where I was able to drive with a family member who had a license, and that was at the age of 15.
Yes.
And I could legally drive by myself at the age of 16.
Yes.
Whereas in the UK, it's 17,
Okay.
and I cannot imagine driving a car at 15 on the road with my parents. That's
I don't
yeah,
I don't understand it now, thinking what my brain was at age
yeah.
15. I am fully against this.
I get that. I
We
get
tried
that.
to sort of brainstorm as to like why that might be. Maybe the roads in the US are easier to drive on, or
Larger, straighter,
yeah,
bigger parking
or
I
spots.
maybe
mean,
there's
that's
just
true.
more of a requirement that people need to use their car
Yeah, that's
to get
true.
places or get to work
That's
or
also
school
true.
rather. But yes, we're gonna go into the driving side of things in a whole series of videos because somebody is on the way to learning how to drive. But yeah, the age there is a huge difference and a huge consideration. And if you're moving to the UK, something you've got a couple extra years to think about before you
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
make
And
that
have a little
decision.
more trust in your child, because a 15-year-old versus a 17 when
Mm.
you can get your permit or drive alone.
You can start taking lessons and stuff at 17, and
Okay.
then again over here you actually have to take lessons to pass the test.
So a 2-year difference, whereas that 2 years, there's so much development going
Yeah.
on, and the decisions
That's
around
facts.
what you feel comfortable allowing your child to do once they drive, where they drive,
Mm.
when they drive, those are all conversations you have to have a lot earlier in the US,
Yeah.
and have a lot more faith in your child at a younger age. So
Yeah.
that's a big difference.
Yeah, we mentioned wanting to give our kids more freedom and stuff, but not when they're able to drive somewhere. Freedom in a field or a beach or something like that. But yeah,
Not on the road.
15-year-old out in the wild, jeez, yikes.
All right, moving on to the next
Yeah,
one.
I
Do
feel
you remember
like
what?
I think what she said when and what they said with America is just so much more dependent upon cars. I think in the UK you can get away without needing a car because you guys have such great public transport, and then you guys are very close to a lot of things. You're more compact. Where in the US there's so much stuff spaced out. You need a car to get to where you're going. So, and then you can start working at 16, but if you don't have a reliable transport, a lot of jobs won't hire you. And so, if your parents can't take you to work every day and pick you up, yeah, you're stuck. Or if you're not in walking distance of your job, you need a car. I didn't get my license until I was 18. I couldn't afford the driver's ed lessons and all those things. But at 18, I didn't have to take any lessons. I literally went online to apply for my permit. All it required me was to pass a written test, which is easy because if you've been riding or driving all your life, you know all the rules. Um, and then for me to get my license, I had to go and take the driver's test in person. Failed the first time, passed the second time. But yeah, it was a very easy process once I hit 18.
What it was?
No.
Well, we can talk about differences with parenting and school pride and spirit,
Okay.
possibly. I think that might be a good one.
This is something I do miss from the US. The school like community and how much they celebrated that with the clothes you could buy. Over in the
Oh yeah.
UK, if you saw a parent wearing a school t-shirt with like your local primary school on it, you'd be like, what is going on here? Whereas in the US, that's completely normal. All the
Mhm.
schools have mascots, which is usually like
Mm-hmm.
an animal, and they make clothes and
Yep.
pencil cases and everything with the logo on it. And it's perfectly normal for parents to turn up wearing that stuff.
Like a jumper with the
Yeah.
school logo. Yeah, it's
Yep.
completely normal.
And then when there's events, people will come and all wear it, and it's just this big sort of community event. And yeah, I like, and it's just, if America's at 11 for what's it, school spirit prep rallies, school
Oh, yeah.
spirit, UK's about -1. There's definitely some pride in your school, but it's not expressed anywhere near like it is in the US.
So when I went asking Zach where I can buy the school jumper for me to go drop off the boys, he locked me in a
I was
closet immediately.
very confused. Like, you don't fit into child-sized clothes, and I don't understand how you're. Yeah,
So just not a thing. Definitely a cultural difference there.
yeah. So
That's
another difference,
interesting.
when kids are around the 12, 13, 14-year-old mark in the UK, you start taking your national tests, which can and will determine your future in terms of university acceptance and all this, that, and the other. And I can attest that as a 12, 13-year-old, having to take sometimes 20 plus exams is
20?
stressful over the
God,
course of like a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the
dang.
setup in Scotland and then the rest of the UK is different. So in Scotland, when you're at senior 3 and 4, you do your standard grades,
Mm-hmm.
which you do about, I think, 7 or 8 topics. And then from that, in your next step, you go up to your hires, which are typically what are used to get you into university.
Okay.
Okay.
Whereas in the rest of the UK, instead of standard grades, they have GCSEs, and then instead of hires, they have A levels.
Okay.
But they're all, the testing is designed to put you on a track towards wherever you want to go in life, basically.
Yeah.
And one parenting decision we see around this is whether or not to get a tutor, because this is so high stakes and really plays into your future quite a bit. Many families, at
Yeah.
least in our area, get their tutors to help sort of teach for the test.
And the other thing is, you're at these young ages and you have to make decisions about the subjects that you might want to study in
Yeah.
5, 10, however many years
So
in the
crazy.
future. And so, as a parent, that's something that you also need to be understanding of and trying to guide your child in
Yeah.
whatever direction they might want to go based on their skills, abilities, likes, interests, this, that, and the other. And
Whereas in the US, it's much more. There are two different tracks you can go. You can either go the technical track, where it's like you're going to go to a trade school after you graduate, or you go the college track or uni track, where you're taking all these classes preparing you to enter university. And then your first 2 years of uni are just general classes where you're learning about
Got you.
statistics
I
and
never
biology.
understood why Henny here was doing computer science classes in university. I was like, he's the least computer scientist you'll ever meet. But yeah, like I said, the first 2 years of the university is still general education.
So, although you do have to make and help guide your child to make those decisions about whether you're going in this route or this route, I would say in the US, it's more commonly pushed that your child, you're pushing them towards uni and
Yeah.
then to explore subjects when they actually get to uni. Whereas you do more of that in high school,
Yeah,
exploring
it's kind of
subjects.
strange because in the US, sort of college is the goal,
Yeah.
whereas that is definitely the goal for a lot of people in the UK. But I think going into like a trade or another vocation is almost more acceptable in the UK.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure why, but so it's strange that we make all our university decisions early,
Mm-hmm.
whereas based on that, it would make sense, I think, for the
Yeah.
US system to do that. But
So, just
Yeah.
something.
I feel like we're starting to get more so in that trend of like picking a trade earlier. Um, just because I feel like during my generation, yeah, all the adults in my life was like college, college, college. College is the key. College is the answer to open doors to anything that you want to do. You got to make sure that you go to college so you get a good job. It was all about like it was drilled into me from day one. College, not from my parents, from school, from administrators, everything. But I think now so it's starting to change to where they are starting to teach our high schoolers like trades and certain things while they're in high school. So college, because college isn't for everyone. We all know that. So they can go straight into a trade. So an internship, something like that. And if college wasn't for them, they don't have to go through that. And so, yeah, And I feel like I was gonna say at like 12, 13, 14, you start pushing them on which like path to go down. But I guess you kind of push them towards interests that they might have at the time, and I'm sure they can still change it when they get to university or figure it out or do all that. Because yeah, even at 18, when we go up to college, it's like you don't know what you truly want to do for the rest of your life. Some do, few, but for most of us, you're interested in something today, and then 2 years down the line, you want to do something else. And so it's very hard to know what you want to do for the rest of your life.
To be aware of as parents. Another thing we see parents considering over here a lot more is to travel internationally. And
Mm,
we were wondering like why is that? And I think so much of it comes down to costs
Mm-hmm.
and just
yeah,
feasibility. The US is
yeah,
so large that
hmm,
to go out of it is such a hassle
Yeah.
for many families, and you have so many different variations of the US that you can enjoy a lot and feel like you're in a different country because it's ginormous. But it is just way more feasible over here to be able to travel to different countries, isn't it?
Yeah, I never understood why such a high percentage of Americans didn't have passports until I realized you can get a taste of so many different varieties within
yeah,
your own country.
Hmm.
Having said that, we have Europe on our doorstep, and
hmm,
getting to truly experience different cultures and countries so easily, you can do it literally on a long weekend,
Hmm.
is something that we're really excited for our kids to experience and for us to share with them as well.
Yes. And I would say, whereas in the US, to be able to do international travel, especially on a yearly basis, that's more for affluent families or
yeah,
families that are in the military and are actually
hmm,
in these different countries. So, in order to do that travel, you're planning years in advance and saving and saving.
yeah,
Whereas over here, it's so much more feasible to make a quick three
Like,
day trip.
as I say, like a trip from the USA to France could be a once in a lifetime trip,
Yeah.
yeah,
whereas here it's a train ride. Well, a couple of trains, but you
Yeah.
can basically get the train to France, which is
yeah,
incredible.
And the difference with jet lag, so
Mm,
you're not going to have that jet lag when you're coming from the US. You want to get your money's worth. So you're going to stay a longer
hmm,
period of time if you're doing an international travel. And it takes about a full week for
yep.
your body
We can
to
100% attest to that.
to get used
Anytime
to
you
it.
go, when either way, the kids sleep and everything are out of whack for at least a week. And that's a minimum of like a 5 hour time difference up
Mhm.
to
Ooh,
7, 8 hours. So
But with that
yeah,
said,
big,
because the US has semesters rather than what are they called?
terms,
Terms. We only have 2 semesters. So you have a 2 week break right after Christmas, and then something like 8 or 9 or 10 weeks for summer vacation.
yeah,
You have to go at one of those 2 times in the year.
true,
Um, and many people decide to do it in the summer. So it's so much more expensive in the
yep.
summer. And
hmm,
that's just something to keep in mind,
that's true,
and because you want to have that time. Whereas in the UK,
Yeah, I mean, right now, Easter break, the kids have near enough like 3 weeks off. I
hmm
think it's like two schedules, but the weekends and stuff, it's almost 3 weeks. So technically, you could do like a US trip and go
hmm
for 2 full weeks. Conversely, you can just jump across to Europe and go for a long weekend, or
yeah.
use those shorter little week breaks to do the same thing, which is
And
nice.
with your 3 terms, so they get about 2 weeks off in between terms, a little
hmm,
bit more in the summer, of course. But even midterms, you have at least a long weekend, if not a 4 or 5 day
Yeah.
time
exactly.
off. So there's more opportunity throughout those terms to travel and to do international travel because you're not fighting that jet lag.
So yeah, if you've just done a move, a large move like we have, and are worried about how you would afford a big family holiday in the summer, do not worry. You can have a little family holiday
Yes.
to, I mean, you can just drive
There
to
you
the
go.
countryside, or you can drive to France, or
Hmm.
yeah. So there's plenty more options and cultures to explore right on your doorstep, which is incredible.
I think we're going to wrap it up here, though. So, those are some of the differences we've seen in parenting sort of styles or
Options.
options, decisions that you have to make that you don't necessarily get to make in another country. So, yeah, it's just interesting to go
Hmm.
through those and let us know if there's something we forgot or if there's something that.
And join us in 10 years for a teenage edition.
Yeah, exactly. But as always, we appreciate your support and hope you have a lovely Easter.
Hi.
I feel like definitely traveling, like they said, it's a lot easier to do in Europe because it's like you can take a train ride to the next country. The next country may be 2, 3 hours away from you, whereas in the U.S., literally before I can leave my state, like my home state, I can drive 12 to 13 hours and still be in the same state. And so it's a lot harder to travel. And then, yeah, to go over to Europe, that takes money. That definitely takes a decent amount of money, or I'd have been over there by now. I've been over there living it up, traveling, exploring everything. But yeah, you have it on. It's a much shorter for you guys. You guys just go for a random weekend. For us, like they said, you have to plan it out for so long. You have to save up. You got to make sure everything's in order, everything's set. Um, but yeah, but for us, I mean, you can travel to the next state. You just don't get as big of a culture change as in going to a completely different country as Europeans do. That's all we have. If you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, check out the next. Let me know what y'all think in the comments.